Welcome to the Ricky Mathews Show. Hope you're having a great day as we come to you, talking to so many amazing people across this great state who are working in the trenches to make it such a great place to live, work, and play. We're coming to you from the Citizens Bank studio, and today is the day we have Jeff Duncan from NOLA.com and the Times Picayune, and we'll jump right into it. But, Jeff, first of all, good morning to you, my friend.
Morning, Ricky. Hope you're getting prepared for the Arctic freeze that's getting ready to hit us.
It's coming, man. You know, and Kyle, you can turn your mic on. We didn't get the video because he didn't know this was coming. But it was fun chatting at the beginning of the show before we actually go on the air. Kyle does a great job of keeping us going, and he watches his watch and he lets me and Jeff talk, and then he in his mind he knows when it's D-Day, when it's time to get started. But he's a very patient dude. But I appreciate what you're doing, Kyle. You ready for the cold weather?
I am ready to sit back and watch the socials and watch people lose their mind. It's going to be great.
Well, I mean, it's interesting, man. As we get closer, it seems to get colder, and the chances of snow and frozen precipitation continues to be something that most of the model show may happen. But it's going to be crazy next week.
I'm going to try and figure out a way to do some kind of geotag location of the over-under on, hey, you're to the videos to the Northerners that your weather's drunken in our front yard. Can you come get it? I'm putting the over-under at 27,422.
Oh, man, of course, in New Orleans, they're going to be freaking out too, aren't they, Jeff?
Yeah, well, look, I was in the Fox 8, do work with Fox 8, of course, every week, and was in the studio yesterday talking to Alan Katz, the lead meteorologist there, and he was showing me the weather patterns, and I mean, he thought there's a really good chance we're going to get snow, which if we get snow, as you all know, same thing over there. People are going to freak out, like Kyle said. I mean, it's one thing to be cold. It's another thing to have snow. And here we are, typical New Orleans, 11th hour, trying to get all these, construction projects finished before the Super Bowl in 3 weeks. That's going to throw a wrench in all those timetables, I think, unfortunately. So let's hope it isn't too bad just for that purpose alone.
Hey, Kyle, real quick, you'll get a kick out of this. In my family chat, my daughter, Tori, who's got 2 kids. She teaches at St. James Elementary. She sent a note to the family chat with a model in it just a few days ago that's showing the possibility of snow. And, of course, I'm a weather enthusiast. So first, I immediately put back into the family chat that snow is currently not forecast. That's just a model she posted. Of course, she's calling me Debbie Downer, and, she might as well call me Jeff Duncan. But anyway, they think I'm just kind of raining on their parade. And then, of course, as we get a little bit closer and the chances are, increasing, and it looks like something's going to happen, they're like, you were trying to make us feel, depressed about the fact that we may not get snow. You're always Debbie Downer when it comes to the snow. Even some of my tropical friends are sending notes now saying, ooh, the possibilities are strong. But it's fun to kind of watch the dynamic with friends and family as something like this approaches.
Yeah, it is. I think probably Monday or Tuesday of this week, maybe even Sunday, my son had started sending me forecast with the possibility of snow. And then I was like, no, it's not going to happen. And then Wednesday night, we had a booster club meeting, and that was the topic of discussion before the meeting was, hey, it's probably going to snow next week. So now I have to go find new soles for my boots and see, because I'll have the dog, and the dog's going to want, well, maybe not. That's going to be a fun video in itself.
Send that. We'll make you famous.
Yeah, exactly. That'll be fun.
Anyway, everybody's preparing. I'm in full protect the palms mode. I will not let the fronds get fried this time, and it will be a major undertaking. But I'm up for it because I love the palms. I hate to watch them grow back. It takes too long. Okay, Jeff. Anyway, sorry for all that, Jeff. The Saints, what an interesting offseason it will be. But Mickey Loomis recently had his roughly 45-minute meeting, and the team at NOLA.com said, how can one guy talk for 45 minutes and not say anything?
Mickey
Loomis
that is
classic. That's classic Mickey Loomis, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, he's actually a little more revealing than he usually is. I think, Mickey, this is now 24 years, I think. He's been the GM. the longest tenured general manager in the NFL, certainly the longest in Saints history. So, I knew what to expect going out there on Monday. I thought he was a little less defiant than a year ago, but he's still resolute, determined, a little defensive. I think I used the phrase a tad bit delusional. I mean, I think that's Mickey Loomis to a T. And look, he admits that he's a glass half full guy. I would argue he's glass 3/4 full. After a 5-12 season, he saw a lot more silver lining to that season than I did. But look, he has to put on that kind of face. I think the key is privately, does he really feel that way? And I think he might, Ricky, which might be a little scary for Saints fans. But if you were part of that Saints fan group that's frustrated by Mickey Loomis, that wants to move on in a new direction, you left probably disappointed with what you heard on Monday.
Yeah, I mean, he said that he's patient, and how can you be patient in this situation? How can you be any bit patient in this situation?
Well, here's the thing. I think one of the things he alluded to was that he's brought in people like Randy Mueller, the former GM of the Saints, Dave Ziegler, former GM of the Raiders, from the outside that maybe aren't quite as patient as him. So maybe those people will have a greater sense of urgency to get this thing righted. But that's part of the concern, I think, is that everyone in that front office was brought in by Mickey Loomis. So you've got a lot of, lack of a better term, yes men. I mean, they're deferential to the man that hired them. It's natural in any organization. And so that's why I think Dennis Lausch, the president, Gail Benson, the owner, they've got to hold the general manager and management, the brain trust, accountable, hold their feet to the fire to get this thing turned around. We don't know if they are or not. We're not in the building, and none of us have had a chance to talk to them. But I think that's part of the frustration with the fans right now is the lack of transparency or accountability. The disconnect, I think, is caused because of that.
Well, look, Cam Jordan is 36. Demario Davis is 36. Taysom Hill is 35. Tyrann Mathieu is 33. That group alone counts to $62 million against the salary cap. Derek Carr will be 34 next season. You add him to the mix, is $110 million toward the salary cap. And while he's not defending that which he may have done in the past, defending that there's an aging roster, he answers instead to say that, youth on the team is beginning to get an opportunity. But there's a reckoning happening, or going to have to happen from a salary cap point of view. It will be very interesting to see what they do.
Yeah, and I think it's one of the main issues with the team right now as far as trying to attract a head coach, at least an elite head coach, is you're going to have to go, I think, through a dip before you get back on the other side of this. I mean, I think it could be as bad next year or worse than it was this year because they've got so much work to do on the salary cap and the roster's aging. And I would argue that Mickey is right in one area, and that is – I think I made this point the other day on social media. Sometimes in a losing situation like this, Ricky, there's a tendency to think everything's bad, make it very black and white and that the roster's terrible. And I've seen it happen. I mean, I saw it happen in 2000 when Jim Haslett came in and Randy Mueller. I saw it happen in 2006 with Sean Payton. There's good players on this roster, and there's some players that haven't blossomed because of circumstances, maybe not being used properly, the vision's not there for them, whatever you want to call it. But there's players that are being probably labeled busts right now by some fans that aren't busts. And it can turn around in that regard quicker than you think because I've seen it happen in the past.
Well, one thing, I don't think if you think about the media present in the room and fans who have paid close attention and what Mickey Loomis had to say about it. I mean, we always have injuries. Injuries are part of the reality of the NFL. But, boy, this year was unbelievable. I mean, it just wiped us out. And you can see he's leaning back toward that happening to the team and really kind of changing the trajectory of the team. And, of course, you've talked about this. You talked about this last year. And we thought that we had put some things in place to deal with it. But soft tissue injuries have just decimated this team.
Yeah, it was really, I have to say, the soft tissue injury issue this year was really kind of an outlier. I mean, we didn't see a lot of those previous years. There were other injuries, but the soft tissue ones, they had kind of rectified that. I've always said this, Ricky, and I think I've said this on your show. These injury sprees, not always, I'm going to make it clear, not always, but often in my experience happen when a team is bad. It's like the chicken or the egg. Which is coming first? Is the team struggling and going downhill? Then these injuries start cropping up. You get my drift? Yeah, Sean Payton alluded to this yesterday in his postseason press conference. He said you earn that when you're a team. And I don't know if he's throwing shade at the Saints or what, but they had a problem in Denver when he got there with injuries, and they got it fixed. They were best in the league this year.
Wow, that's so interesting.
Anyway, it's just a point I'm making.
Maybe some solutions there. When we come back on the other side, we'll continue our conversation with Jeff Duncan. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to the Ricky Mathews Show from the Citizens Bank Studio. We have Jeff Duncan from NOLA.com and the Times Picayune, and we're talking about the Saints. And when we went to break, you were mentioning that Sean Payton goes up to Denver where they had an injury issue, and they rectified it for the most part this year. Be interesting to hear more about how they did that and get your thought on that. But the other thing I'd like to add to that, too, is I read this really good story, this detailed story this week, in fact, about Tom Brady and what he did over the years to stay in shape. You know, diet, the work that he did on soft tissue, the stretching, his exercise, and he literally lived it. So winners in the NFL, man, they have to live a certain commitment that some are just not willing to do. I mean, it's insane what some of these guys are doing to stay in shape.
Yeah, and look, some injuries are going to happen. It's a violent game. What Peyton was referring to is the culture issue. He says when you build the right culture, your players want to come to the off-season program. They want to work out at the facility. He was alluding to the fact that so many players now want to do their own off-site personal trainer work and then join the team. He says when you have the right culture in the building, a winning culture, a successful culture, the players come there and they're all under the same umbrella. So I think that's what he's getting at. And that's been an issue with the Saints. You know, some players wanting to not work out. And the other thing is, I mean, this is no secret. I've talked to you about this before. A guy like Marshawn Lattimore, who was always injured here, there was a lot of people in the building that felt like he was just milking the injury. It wasn't really – their medical reports were coming back, Ricky, that he should be fine, yet they couldn't force him on the field. Is that a product of the team being bad and him not wanting to get out there? Or, you know, would he have done this in 2007 and 2017 and 18 when the team was 13-3? Probably not. That's what I'm getting at. Players fight their way back when they're in a winning culture and there's something to play for.
Yeah, there was always frustration around Marshawn, always. I mean, when he was on the field and going head-to-head with Mike Evans, you got to see what he was capable of doing. But you saw that coming from a mile away, that there was a good chance he would get traded away, and that's what ultimately happened, you know. So what are you hearing? What are you hearing about the coaching search? Are you hearing anything?
No, they're keeping it close to the vest. I would just caution people to not get too caught up in whatever you're reading right now. Most of that speculation that is coming out, at least for anything to do with the Saints, is probably being generated by the agents of the coaches involved. And so they're getting it secondhand to some degree. You know, Mickey Loomis, especially with items of this importance, he keeps his cards close to the vest. He'll have a very tight inner circle. I don't think anything will come out anytime about who their next coach is going to be. Plus, I know they're very high on Aaron Glenn. I do know that. And he's not going to be available until the Lions get eliminated. So I think this thing's going to drag out. So anything you're hearing is strictly, I think, speculation and scuttlebutt. Well,
you know, we talked about this before, but you think we're barreling toward a Baltimore, Detroit Super Bowl?
Well, I don't know about that. I think it's Detroit and Baltimore, Buffalo, KC. Those three. I'll be shocked if it's not those three teams in the AFC and maybe Philadelphia or Detroit in the NFC. I don't see anybody else. It's a very top-heavy league this year. This was a very unusual year. There wasn't a lot of parity. There were a lot of really good teams and a lot of bad teams. I mean, the fact that the Saints were 5-12 and they're only picking ninth, that tells you right now in the draft, I mean, that there were a lot of teams worse than the Saints at 5-12. So I think it's pretty clear who's going to end up being here. I personally think it's going to be Detroit in the NFC because that home field advantage, I've talked to some colleagues that have been to games up there. It's real, man. That city wants to be in the Super Bowl. They've never been there, Ricky. We've talked about it. Original franchise, never even made an appearance. I just think that emotion and that responsibility, and they came so close last year, winning at halftime in the NFC Championship game. I just think that's going to stick in their craw, and it's going to get them over the top.
Hey, listen, I hate to say this because I don't like Tampa Bay. I don't like Tampa Bay, but I don't hate Tampa Bay as much as I hate Atlanta. Okay, so I don't know why that is, but that is the way it is. Partly because my wife's family, lives in the Tampa, Orlando area, and they're big fans. But you know what? I've always been a Baker Mayfield fan. I just like Baker Mayfield. I like the way he plays. And I don't know if you've seen this or not. If you haven't, you got to go look at it. There's a new series on Prime that is about undercover. So in this case, they have a super fan get-together at the Tampa facility, and Baker Mayfield is made up and to be a super fan. And he's part of the. It's really, really good. But you get a chance to kind of get to know him, and you get to see once they reveal who he is, you get a chance to see how the fans see him, and how the players see him, and it's been cool to sort of watch his rejuvenation. I hate it for the Saints, but he, so I wish he would have won. It would have been fun to watch him go a little bit further. Yeah,
no, I think he's done a tremendous job down there. I mean, I would have to say. And I brought this up before a couple times, Ricky. I mean, the Tampa Bay Bucks are a really good example of an organization that kind of went through the exact same thing the Saints had to do. You had to rebuild the roster, transition the roster, an aging roster from a Hall of Fame quarterback. Tom Brady retired a few years ago, and Tampa Bay has managed that so much better than the Saints have post Drew Brees. I mean, the salary cap's a mess here. Tampa Bay's got their salary cap in order. They've still got a lot of veteran guys, Levante David, Antoine Winfield, Vita Vea, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. And they went out and got kind of a veteran quarterback like Derek Carr and Baker Mayfield. They didn't pay him as much. And they've won 4 division titles, and their future looks so much brighter than New Orleans because they've managed this thing so much better. So I think that's a good example for Saints fans. It can be done. It's just it has to be managed properly.
One thing I forgot is I always thought Baker was a little bit smaller, but when you put him, on this show, you get a chance to see him, and he's in incredible shape. He's taller than I realized. One of the things they do before he reveals who he is they throw the football, and he's throwing the football, over 50 yards from, flat-footed. I mean, since these NFL players are incredibly talented dudes, aren't they?
Yeah, well, it's a good example when you put them up next to just ordinary people, I guess. But, yeah, look, Baker Mayfield was the number 1 pick in the draft, Ricky. I mean, there's a reason he was the number 1 pick in the draft. He won the Heisman Trophy. So, and look, you know what you're getting with Baker Mayfield. I mean, he can throw you into a game. He can throw you out of a game. He's kind of crazy out there, but he's got something about him that players are, gravitate toward.
You can dang sure see it, man. That's really, really good to see. So as we barrel into the offseason, you're expecting just about anything to happen now. I mean, we could try to hold it together, or we could see some big names go. We may see some surprises at coach. I mean, some of at least he intimated this, Mickey did, that we may get a name that we don't know. I mean, I guess he's just kind of teasing because he doesn't know yet, right?
Well, no, I think he's being honest. I mean, I think there's just a lot of speculation, like I said. Now, I know, Mike McCarthy's going to interview early next week. I'm a big Mike McCarthy fan. I covered Mike when he was here as the offensive coordinator. I think he's a tremendous head coach. I mean, if they get Mike McCarthy, I think it's going to be a home run hire for the Saints. And it wouldn't surprise me if he ends up here. I mean, I know he and Mickey are friends. I've seen them together. They've done stuff away from the field together. I know there's mutual respect there. So I could see them going in that direction, but I also know that Aaron Glenn's a very strong candidate. It's going to really come down to, I think, the New York Jets and the Saints for Aaron Glenn. It's going to be Aaron Glenn played in New York for the Jets, but I don't think they could go wrong with either one of those two guys, put it that way. But I do agree that there could be another candidate that nobody knows about just because Mickey keeps these cards close to the vest.
Now, you have repeatedly said that Mike McCarthy, in spite of what may have gone down in Dallas, you've maintained the entire time that he is a really, really good coach, and he did a great job when he was here. It's interesting, though, look, and you say don't pay attention to this, but I can't help it. If you go and look at X, some of the, once he got fired, some of the Saints fans beginning to weigh in. People are torn about Mike McCarthy. Maybe it's just because of what they've observed while he's been in Dallas.
Well, here's the way I would say that. In NFL circles and coaching circles, Mike McCarthy is very highly regarded. I trust those people more than WhoDat97 on Twitter. These are the same people, Ricky, that think they know how to fight the fires out in L.A.
Hey, look, and the other
armchair
thing
firefighters.
Some of these Saints team news organizations that are paid, they'll do just about anything to kind of stoke it, won't they?
Yeah, I mean, that's what the internet's about. It's about traffic and clicks, and I mean, we know that. But Mike is a very good coach. Look, you don't win 12 games in a row. I think they won double-digit games 3 years in a row in Dallas. He won a Super Bowl in Green Bay. Everyone thought, he can't coach Aaron Rodgers. He got blasted for that. Well, I think America's finding out Aaron Rodgers is not easy to coach or manage. We're seeing that now. I've got full faith in Mike McCarthy, and so should everyone else.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Hey, Jeff, have a good one. Stay warm, my friend.
Yeah, we'll talk next week, bud. I'll talk to you
then.
Bet.
It's been a pleasure. This has been my friend Jeff Duncan from NOLA.com and the Times Picayune, and we'll see him next week. Listen, when we come back, JT Mitchell from SuperTalk Mississippi News will be joining me. We'll see you after this.